Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again. My name is Charmaine, a student from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. Welcome to You Alive. Today's event is organized by the NUS Office of Alumni Relations. The program today is in 3 sections. First, we have a 10-minute talk by our speaker, Professor Hsieh Tsun-Yan, a 20-minute interview with Viswa Sadasivan, the chairman of the You Alive Organizing Committee, and a 30-minute Q&A session. We will be using, if you wish to ask a question, please make your way to the microphones placed along the aisles, introduce yourself, and speak directly into them. This is essential so that the online community can hear your question. Today, we will also be using Pigeonhole Live for our Q&A session. If you have a smartphone, tablet, or a laptop computer with you, just launch your internet browser and go to ph.live.at. ph.live.at. Key in our event passcode, which is UAlive. I repeat, it is UALIVE. Click go, and you're free to fire away all your burning questions while also voting for any question that interests you. The more popular questions with more votes will stand a higher chance to be answered by the speaker. Also, do remember to leave your feedback on the Pigeonhole application after the end of the show. Thank you for your kind attention, and please sit back and enjoy.
You Alive.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Hsieh Tsun-Yan.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you for taking the time and effort to come down here. I hope in the next 10 minutes or so I can share some of my own observations from my walk in the forest, so to speak. I'll try to make the points as cleanly and crisply as possible, and then in the Q&A, be happy to take questions that would illustrate those points with my experiences, my personal experiences, and examples I've seen elsewhere. The first thing that I'm trying to tell you with all sincerity is that there's a huge opportunity in the world being a better place if all of us, and I mean everyone, recognize that they are a leader. When we say leader, we tend to think about people in high places, our prime minister, our president, our CEO, the head of the clan, or whatever. We seldom think about our leaders as the people just next door to us, in the same team as us, in our mahjong group, or in a hospital ward, the fellow nurses and fellow colleagues, if you will. But as a keen student of leadership my entire career, I have seen that over and over again. I'll give you an example that just came right in my mind as I walked up the stage. It was SARS. And I was actually working in one of the hospital systems, and only a couple of them at that time. And it was at a situation that was totally unfamiliar. Huge uncertainty as to where the viruses were coming from and how to contain it, let alone how to treat it. So the question then gets to be, in that kind of environment, who will step up and really provide a sense of direction? Who will step up and really provide stability to the operation, because you got a lot of people, whether they have SARS or not, needed to be treated because they are patients that require attention in a hospital. And I was there doing a piece of work in helping them with their systems. And I observed that it's not necessarily the big doctors, it's not necessarily the people who hold high office that knew what to do. It's people coming out from everywhere. It can be a nurse, it can be a doctor, it can be an intern, it can be anything. But the very fact that these people had seen it in them to be able to step forward and give opinion, and better still, do something about a situation that I'm sure all of us felt somewhat helpless, because there is not a textbook, there's no internet at that time that would tell you what to do with a terrible pandemic called SARS. Away from disasters and uncertainty and unfamiliarity, we also see, in a smaller scale, day to day, if you go to visit your relative in a hospital ward, spend a minute or two just observing who's really getting the work organized, the work to go on, the delivery of patient care to actually happen seamlessly, so that you and I will feel confident that our sick relative are in good hands. Yes, there are procedures. Yes, there are clinical pathways. There are doctors who make their rounds. But most of the time, they are the nurses, and not necessarily in terms of seniority, that take charge, step up, and exercise leadership. Now, I can tell you chapter and verse over and over again in every single walk of life, in Singapore and in the 35 countries that I happen to have worked in over my life. So leadership is in everyone. The question then gets to be, do you believe in it? Do you believe that you are a leader? And what kind of leader are you if you believe that I'm a leader, but what do I lead on? The world is full of constructs or things that help us convince ourselves that we're not a leader. If you step up, you might get, whacked by your teacher when you're in the school, right? Or you're trying to be showing off if you're, maybe less so if you're going to a US college. And the workplace, you're told, hey, that's not your place to ask that question. That's above your pay grade. So keep your head low and keep cranking away. So there are systematic reinforcement to the notion that there are the leaders and there are us. It's very sad, because the world will be a far better place if everybody took delivery of the fact that when moments of uncertainty and unfamiliarity where all these constructs crumble, that the true leadership emerge naturally from very unpredictable places and from everyone. So that's my first point. So do you believe in that? Because if you do believe in it, you'll behave very differently. And you will behave in a way that allow yourself to be expressed much more fully and live a life that could be very fulfilling, because you will have ways you will find to express your own leadership in a way that will benefit others, in a way that will get followership to that cause, that purpose, and do something that's good for the collective, so to speak. Second point I'll make is that how do you become the leader and unleash that leader? Well, there are really three things about leadership that I think is very simple. There's nothing theoretical about it. You know it already. The first thing is that you have to know something. So if you're in a situation in the hospitals that I talked about, you have to know about the, all the medical things that are involved in dealing with a situation like that. And when you, at the end of your knowledge, which, as we said, SARS at that point in time, there was no precedent. Nobody understood. You have to extend your knowledge beyond what you know into the unknowable, unfamiliar, the uncertain. So the first thing is not just how much you know, but how do you get to know what is unknowable? How do you deal with SARS? There isn't a note, there is an internet Wikipedia to tell you what to do. Now there's been a lot of talk about the second piece, which is about skills, the doing part of it. Because at the end of the day, all dressed up and knowing something is quite useless. Leadership cannot do its work till something happens, when somebody does something. So the doing part of it, or the skill that goes behind doing, is very critical. And I'm glad there is much more awareness about doing, about skills. By the way, if you would have asked me, is degree important, not important? It's the wrong question. Can you be a doctor without a degree? Can you be a good engineer if you're not trained to be an engineer? So that's not the right question. The right question is that, do you have the skills that are necessary? But very few people ask the question, which is being, the third and most important part of it, which is, who are you? Each and every one of us here and those on the web are very unique human beings. That's what makes us interesting, and that's what makes us unique, and that's what makes the world interesting. And the question is, do we even bother to acknowledge the uniqueness of each and every one of us? Okay, the questions often asked is, what do you do? Or what are you? Not they say, oh, I'm an engineer. Oh, you're a doctor. But that's a what question, it's not a who question. What might your answer be to the question, who are you? Now that's a very long question to answer in terms of, do you really know who you are? Well, as you grow older, you know a lot more. But how might we raise the awareness to get to know who we are? Because, you see, in all humility, in the end of the day, when you grow older, you realize this. It's not what you know. It's not what you can do. People follow leaders because they believe in the person. They believe in his or her values. They believe in their character. They believe that they are genuine. They believe that they have a heart to give. And you know that. So the question then gets to be, are you aware about who that great leader in you? And if not, are you on a journey to find out who that great leader that is already in you? Now, I know that my time is up, but I cannot resist telling this story. Okay, I understand. But you'll take a minute. How many of you have seen the statue of David in the Academia in Florence by Michelangelo? All right, at least seen a photograph of it, right? It is, I highly recommend, this is the internet age, I won't tell you the whole story. Please go home and Google, Michelangelo David. 1501, he created possibly and arguably the best work in his life. But there's a story behind it. And the story was that that piece of marble was at the churchyard of the Duomo in Florence for 25 years growing mold. And they had called a tender, the city elders, and amongst the people who might bid for it, the commission, if you will, included such name as Leonardo da Vinci, not exactly a slouch. But Michelangelo won that commission at the age of 26 because he already saw in that dirty stone, lying supine, if you will, that had been chipped away by the previous guy who abandoned the commission apparently, the great statue of David. And he said, and Vasari was the guy who wrote it down, I did not create David as so much as to unleash David from this piece of marble. I removed the unnecessary material so that the great statue of David has a chance to come out. Just think. Think about that. Who is that great leader that is already in you? How has life experiences and the experiences that is ahead of you going to shape so that that true, great, beautiful leader that can do good, inspire all, and move the collective towards a better good, emerge from the state you're in. So that's my remarks.
Sun-Yan, thank you. Thank you.
Pleased to be here.
What you said just now was absolutely music to my ears. I'd like to start by asking you about the anointed leaders in society and the appointed leaders in society. You are one of the anointed leaders. You've got a President's Scholarship. You're a President's Scholar. In our society, when you're a President's Scholar, you're not human anymore. It doesn't mean you're inhuman. It usually means you are superhuman. But looking at you is a compliment. You're human.
Thank you. I like that better.
And I guess one of the reasons why you have been humanized is because you chose to reject the trappings that come with the anointment. You were invited after your president and Colombo Plan Scholarship to serve in the admin service, right? But you chose not to. Would you want to share with us why?
It was rather naive on my part. I was young, please remember this. So I had no idea that the administrative service was elite. So instead I said, hey, listen, you send me to engineering, so at least give me a chance to practice as an engineer. And even till today, I had no regrets. I know that the admin service is truly elite. But what do I know about policy setting and serving the people? I was trained as an engineer, right? So, and I had learned, quite a few things in dealing with vendors and dealing with the people that I supervised. So I had, looking back, very pleased the fact that I had chosen that path with no regrets.
And obviously, it's not, I mean, you didn't turn out too badly.
That may not have anything to do with the choice.
You, in case you're wondering, I mean, he was chairman of McKinsey for Asia. And McKinsey is not a small company, yeah? It's a kind of a respected company. But you probably got the job by chance.
In fact, to tell you the truth, the senior partner, who's an Italian that hired me, every time we get together with him, in our respect, he would remind me, and I'd like to tell the story of how badly I did in my interviews. He gave me a banking case, and he said it was very clear that in 5 minutes, Sun-Yan did not know a thing about banking. But he went on for an hour. And he nevertheless went to the mat, so to speak, and really fought for me to be hired. I was a very marginal hire. But I was the first ethnic Chinese of any kind, any description, any nationality, to be hired in at that time, a very blue-blooded firm.
And what year was this?
1980.
Right. So if you go back to your analogy or to your point that you have to believe in yourself, right? And that's something that I relate to very much, because honestly, I get very put off when I hear some of our leaders say that we are short of talent. I see talent all around me. It's just that you are just looking at the wrong places. If you limit your definition of talent to PSC scholars, of course we have a shortage of talent in Singapore. But by what you just said just now, if we have the courage to cast the net wider, and I would say something else, have the courage to take a chance with people. I think we are not prepared to take a chance with people. We are afraid that people will let us down. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that that's a tragedy. I genuinely and humbly believe that for every person, there is a leader, and therefore there is a leadership challenge that fits the person. Doesn't come in one size and shape. Those of you who are interested in reading history I also recommend Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
Right? And if you read his biography, you discover the fact that he had a hell of a time in doing all those things that would have been the trappings of leadership. It's like, for example, he had a hell of a time getting to Sandhurst.
Yep.
He had a hell of a time becoming a hero at war, to show bravery at war. He was, at the end of his prime ministership, he was voted out. Yep. And the only, sitting prime minister that was kind of voted out in a wartime prime minister that was voted out. And by the way, if you check, the Britain supposedly won the war. Okay?
Yep.
So what's the story? The story there is really that World War II was the unique leadership episode that matches Winston Churchill perfectly. I think it would be tragedy to hold Winston Churchill up on the pedestal and say Sir Winston was the perfect leader. We should learn how to be more like Winston. I'm sure that we're, being a keen student, I always have things to learn from everybody. But that would be the mistake. The question that I always encourage my audiences to think about is that if you see some ordinary people in your organization, it could be a janitor, it could be some very junior staff walk by, and you ask the question, what is that person's World War II for which he or she would have been the perfect leader for? And that I challenge myself. When I was at McKinsey, we had a fairly new organization in Asia. Being able to rise up to the expectations that our clients have of us was a very tall challenge. And I constantly remind myself, if this person cannot do A, what would be the perfect leadership challenge for which this person is carved out to be? It is my fault for not being able to figure that out, not theirs.
Let me play the devil's advocate, Sun-Yan. Whatever you're saying sounds very politically correct.
I did not intend to be.
And whatever you're saying could strike a chord with a lot of us. But the truth is, are you prepared to walk the talk? Have you walked the talk? You've been in positions of leadership where you could have actually practiced what you're preaching today. Have you?
I tell you that when this is easy to see at this point, but it was difficult to see when I started my journey. I chose the unproven path, right? When I joined McKinsey, I say by the skin of my teeth, I was joining an office of 16 people, counting the receptionist. We do not have a steady diet of work, and nobody knew where Singapore was, let alone what a president scholar was supposed to be. And I have to demonstrate what I could do to justify them continuing my employment. I was a nobody. And so all these things come from learning about how to actually become much more aware of who I'm at, how I can deal with all the racial slurs, deal with the slights, deal with the fact that, even after I became the first partner in my MBA class, first associate in my MBA class on 80 to make partner in all of North America, Canada and USA, they still think, yeah, he may be smart, but can he get client? So you see, there's still that slight, right? And when I got the rainmaker and explains 2/3 of the practice's revenue with my clients that supported me, the question was, will he last? Right? It's because there's that difference. Clients, and there are people out there that celebrate that difference. And the important thing is to have the awareness of what you're made of. It's those kind of setbacks, those kind of slides. I have nothing to fall back on other than what I have myself, my inner being to call upon to face up to these challenges.
No, but my question is, I appreciate you sharing that. My question is, there's a tendency for many of us, once we cross the bridge, we somehow forget the experience of the past.
All right.
How much do we, after we have made it, how much are we willing to give others who are struggling a chance?
I relish at that opportunity. I'll tell you this. Now that it's easier for me to say this, but if I look back on my behavior, not my intentions. First, I never turn away anybody that come to my door and ask for advice. In fact, till today, all right, anybody that was referred to me, somebody 22-year-old, and then looking for some advice, I would have coffee with them if my schedule allowed. If not this week, then next week.
You're asking for trouble now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that I am. But I'm quite confident the world has two kinds of people. One, those who were never bothered, and those who will never take no for an answer.
Yeah.
Right? So if they ask, they deserve. Second thing it was that I cannot remember how many cases when I was running McKinsey's Canadian practice of people actually left high and dry because they were women, they were racial minorities, and when they come around to the most crucial round in their career, they were kind of left high and dry, right? And then I had to go to the mat and say, listen, which one of you are going to give her an opportunity? If not, I'm going to put up my hand. I don't know, this person never worked with her before, but I could afford it. I had to put it where my mouth was. So I'm glad that some of these people are now doing extremely well. And they go on to have families and still be very successful professionals. That, after 30 years, is what I can stand up and say, what am I proud of? I'm proud of, right? Every single partner, senior partner that are women in the Canadian practice, I knew that in my heart of hearts, I had lent them a hand at the crucial moment of support.
And what you just said really is about belief, isn't it?
It's a belief.
I mean, most of us, all we need is someone to believe in us. And for me, that's the big travesty in our society. I meet a lot of students in neighborhood schools. I give talks to schools. But I can see the way, for example, I'm not generalizing, but quite often our normal stream students are patronized. And they know they're being patronized. What they lack is someone believing in them and not patronizing them. What is wrong with our society that we find it so difficult to express our belief and our commitment to another fellow human being who may be of a different socioeconomic background, who may be of a different labeling, who may be of a different race, Why do we find it so difficult to actually convey to that person that you appreciate what he's doing, you respect him, and that you believe in him? Because that can be so transformational. But we are so stingy about this.
Yeah. Well, I think as we mature as a society, we could learn to be more gracious to each other.
And generous.
And gracious and generous. And if we slow down, I always challenge the people I work with, that I coach. I say, can you imagine that if you do what you wanted to do in 75% of the time, you just imagine, instead of 125% of the time, which is haven't got time for anything. What might you do with the other 25%? Good things come out of it. I'll give them the assignment. You go to the garden, go to the, around the swimming pool, whatever that's convenient, but don't come back for another 3 hours. Because I know that it's not going to be an easy answer. The first page, I give them a little notebook. The first page is very easy. I go play golf, I go take a vacation, I might buy more Prada bags, whatever. But you have 3 hours to go. What are you going to do with that time? I think we have to be, you touched on the word, more transformational. Transformational is that if you have the confidence that we have arrived in your life, as a society, as a people, then we perhaps could say to ourselves we can afford to slow down a bit every now and then and reinvest that time in each other and the people around us that are pure strangers. And I kind of discovered this by accident. My first managing director in Canada, that's with McKinsey, personally go down the corridor. Remember I told you that we haven't got much work at that time. And I'm a foreign-sounding, foreign-looking guy. He personally went down the corridor and chased everybody who sits around their desk and have their lunch out. I don't care if you had nobody to have lunch with, right? Go have lunch with your classmate, go have lunch with, go ring up a hospital and say, hey, I got free time, my boss had thrown me out. I got to have lunch with somebody. Can I come and have lunch with some patients, right? You discover that they'll say yes. And I learned so much from that. And he set a habit, a challenge to all of us and say, we made money by providing advice, but are you helping society? So at a very young age of a second or third year associate, I can't remember now, I actually approached Covenant House, which was established quite aside from, there's nothing religious about it. It was having to do with, in the dead of winter, driving a truck, sitting in a truck together with a driver and another social worker, and go to up and down Yonge Street and pick up teenagers that have run away from home, that are vulnerable to pimps, to drug dealers. And I can tell you the shocking fact, as much as 85% of them are coming from very high income, affluent homes. And when I do that, there's something in me that kind of comes alive that I feel that life is not all about clocking the hours, charging clients, making good money. It is about, feeling compassionate to people that for whatever reason found it not possible to stay in their comfortable home and warm beds.
What is clear is what your Canadian, what is chairman, or was it
managing director?
Managing director in Canada, McKinsey, did was he presented to you leadership, which is distinctly different, as we discussed earlier, from management.
Yeah.
We have a lot of managers, right, with MBAs, but would you suggest, would you agree with me if I were to put it to you, that perhaps we have something of a leadership crisis in Singapore? We don't have enough leaders who are assuming leadership positions. maybe we have a lot of hidden leaders who have yet to be discovered, who have yet to discover their own potential. Maybe the system does not allow it.
Yeah. First of all, on a second part, and then I'll come back to your leadership crisis point. The second part, you hit it right on the head. Because I deal with corporation, I don't deal with government so
Yep.
much. When they say don't have enough leaders, I always tell them this little belief of mine, which is that everyone is a leader. So where do I find them? Who are they that I have not used? You are telling me that I'm blind, stupid, or deaf. I said, no, I'm not. I say, how do you know? I say, listen, you have hidden gems. You have damaged goods. Damaged goods are people who are maybe damn good, but very young in their career, they pissed off their boss, and they kind of big stamp on their forehead and say, damaged goods. Right?
Yeah.
Second quality, remember? Right?
In Singapore, we say kena mak lah.
Right? Misclassification is another one who sort of say, Tsun-Yan, he's a great engineer, he's a great analyst, but can he get clients?
Yeah.
So he's an analyst. That gets straight on your forehead. And try as I might, and it's not everything that had to do with race, right? There are people at the same time cruising down the corridor, not doing much other than stamp on the forehead. Winners, beautiful people, leader, or high potential.
Or losers.
Yeah. All of this labeling
Yeah.
defeats this fundamental belief that not what I believe in what Winston Churchill is about. Now, regarding the leadership crisis, I believe we as a society is suffering more from a crisis of confidence. Confidence first in ourselves and then in each other. What do I mean by that? If you're really confident and you know who you are, do we stand here and externalize and blame? You blindfold anybody from any country in the world and, remove their blindfolding here in Singapore and drive them around for a day. Would they be making the complaints that we are making? So what is wrong with that? What's wrong with that is that I think we have a crisis of confidence. Confidence first in ourselves that, we can. That's a can is the Singaporean can. You remember, there was one time, there was a calling in Malaysia, so Malaysia Boleh.
Boleh. Still going on.
It's a similar thing. Yeah? If we can, then we can collectively. Secondly, do I have a confidence in you? I may not have confidence in you, if I give you $1 million to invest for me, I don't know you. But I am confident that if this conversation continues, in the next half hour, I will find something that I'll be confident in you to do on my behalf and do together. Now that's the crisis of confidence. We don't even bother. We assume that you're no good, you're up to something. You might damage me, you might hurt me, you might cause my property value to go down. You might compete with my son at school and take away the A's. For crying out loud, who has set quota for A's?
NUS?
So we have a crisis of confidence that started with ourselves. Don't have to look elsewhere. And crisis of confidence in each other. What would confident people do? As I mentioned, they would think about what can I, do? What can I find that I can be confident in you about? And, maybe I was brought up in my walk like that Canadian managing director. Get the hell out of here and do something. And which community service, as it turns out, now I realize that community service is one of the top 4 arenas in which you can shape your leadership. Because they're all volunteers. You can't yell at me. I'm not, I'm not a sergeant and you're the colonel. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I'm a volunteer. You don't like my face, I go home. I don't come anymore. So volunteer is all about leadership because there's no managing, right? Parenting. God has given us our kids, and we are all kids once before. Nobody teaches us, this is not a leadership school. You don't have to go to Harvard Business School to learn that. But we try to be better children and better parents. And in so doing, who's leading whom? Go figure that out when the 1-year-old kid is screaming at the top of her lungs. Right? Are you leading? Are you controlling? No, she is in control. And you the follower, and she's the leader, even at 1-year-old. Huh?
It's something I say about the wife.
Yeah.
She's in control.
That comes to the number 3, right? Your life partnership. Those of us who are fortunate to be married and stay married would agree. Who's leading? Now, in Asian society, the women have learned a way, right, to be seen, to be more subservient. I mean, talking about my generation, your generation, perhaps, right? But they're actually in charge, right? One of my NUS alum friends said, you know, you and I are generals, right? We make the general decisions.
But the major
But our
decision-
wife is the major. They make the major decisions. We think we're the generals, right?
But the classic one on that score was when I went to visit a friend of mine and went to the restroom, and there was this wonderful poster of this burly-looking guy with a handlebar mustache, tough-looking guy, and as a quotation, "I'm the master of this house, and I have my wife's permission to say so." And I don't think they were
Yeah.
joking.
So, I mean, these are the 4 arenas. You know, and we don't have any choice, but we are enrolled in them. This is not NUS that you have to make an application, right? Your life partnership, parenthood, community services, and workplace. In each one of these arenas, right, it is the life curriculum, as I call them, because you're enrolled in the curriculum that teaches you and I about leadership.
Well, you know, maybe this is a good time, since we're talking about leadership. Leadership is such a sexy topic. And leadership is also a much maligned word. Everybody and his mother is using the word leadership. So what exactly does it mean to you? Perhaps we could start with that. Or anything else that any one of you wants to raise.
I talked about everyone is a leader, so leader is everyone. So what is
Yeah.
leadership? Leadership is that force in us, the force in us that causes a larger collection of people to go beyond the normal, to do something that they would not otherwise would not have done, to do it better, consistently, or create something totally new. Because managing is about continuing the status quo, maybe a little bit more productively, a little bit 5% better than last year, a little bit more efficient. Leadership is going to a totally different place. And to do that, you need to have people willing to come along.
Willing to follow you.
Well, yeah. And therefore, it's that force. The force that draws people rather than pressurize people. You can, you know, force people every now and then with pressure, but you can't force them for sustained periods.
To willingly follow you.
Yeah.
Questions? Comments? Anyone? Come on, guys. Bring the leader out of you. Yeah. State your name,
Hi, good evening.
your IC number.
Hi, I'm Mr. Liang. Hi, I'm Albert. You can call me Albert. Okay, I just had a conversation recently with my boss, and we were just over the car. We were just talking about what's management. So he told me this. He said, "Look, being a manager, what I want to do is to be redundant. So it's like I manage to be redundant. So just now you were talking about being a leader and a manager. So when we talk about leader, it's not just more about making yourself redundant, but it's making yourself really involved and integrate into the team. But when he made that statement of being a manager himself, so that he made himself redundant, so that he don't need to be in the office and he still get the work done. What do you say about that?"
Well, I like them to be that boss, redundant. No, I think, first of all, manager, in my definition, is management is about delivering results as promised. Because society depends, shareholder depends on management being able to deliver, profits to then pay dividend to keep the clock going. Redundancy is an interesting word in the Western culture, and particularly business world. redundancy is in fact a dirty word, which is to say you're redundant, you're surplus, and therefore we should get rid of you in the efficiency drive, etc. But I think your boss is using the word redundant in a more constructive way that if I heard correctly is actually quite helpful. And that is that, actually, if it is meant in the spirit of saying, I'm going to develop all of you, right, to be able to do what I do, so much so that I don't need to be around anymore, that's great, because then there is that growth. There's that growth in each one of you. And secondly, is that the self-managing. Self-managing. That means you don't need me to sort out the conflicts and so on, that things have a way of getting sorted out among yourselves. Self-managing is also a good thing. And not every leader has the confidence into that. No, go ask him, is that what his intentions? And if so, tell him that I like it. I like it.
Okay, next question, comment? Anyone? Yeah, please. Our stalwart.
My name is Tan Sip Ping, alumni of University of Malaya at that time.
Okay, good.
I just want to find out from you whether you have a leadership by example or just in theory. Oh, don't do as I do, but do as I say. That means if you want to be a leader, you must show good example for other people to follow. But don't you say that, I only say blah, 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 this thing, and then don't follow what I'm doing, right? So what is the difference between the two?
Yeah. Well, I think you basically answer your own question, because one of the best way to tell a person's how good is the person's leadership is how good is his or her followership. It's very wonderful to put the uniform on me of a general and whip out my big sword and say charge. Question is, you turn it around, is there anybody following you? Right? There are many of those kind of commandant characters. They find themselves stranded because there are no followers. So that's the first point. Second thing, so followership is really key. So the question then is, leading by example is absolutely vital, because that's the only way you can believe, that people can believe in you. Right? If I can't do what I'm asking you to do, what good am I? How credible am I? Now there's a class of audiences that I have, and it is, shall we say, family-owned businesses that actually inherit a lot of money, right? And one of the key questions that the patriarch, the parent generation is struggling with, and that struggle is universal, whether you're talking Brazilian, Singaporean, or Canadian families, is, right, how can they actually teach their children leadership by example? In that kind of environment, the kind of environment that say, well, don't do as I say, yeah, that simply doesn't work.
Okay.
Ping?
Now, you mentioned leadership is everywhere. You and I everywhere, all that. But the trouble is, everybody say that this thing happened is none of your business. So the thing to wake people up is that you must take possession of the situation and do something.
Yeah.
That's where the leadership come up. But if you and I go walk by and see this fellow stealing something, you just pretend not to know and forget it. Whereas if you are good enough and passionate enough, you stop and then catch a fellow and then do something to him.
You're right.
So leadership means you must take possession of what is going on. If you just don't care, I just sweep down, whatever happened, it doesn't concern me.
Okay.
And that's where I think our Singapore government suffer from that. Because the PAP government is so efficient, everybody say, don't worry, government will do this, government will do that. So you and I just live out, right? So I think that is a very wrong concept. So all of us must see, if you pass by something wrong, you ought to put it right. And rather than just walk by and forget it, the government will do after it. or someone else will do it. The town council will do it, right? So do you agree? You know?
So you're speaking from your experience of living in Johor. It must be a stark comparison, huh? It's all right.
No, I'm already
just
retired,
being
so I
mischievous.
don't, yeah. Yeah.
Thank
No,
you.
First of all, I agree with you that it's not so much the trouble with the, it is an opportunity as our society becomes more mature and therefore more complex. You cannot rely on a relatively small group of wise men and women, whether you define the cabinet or even the parliament, to kind of, take care of all the problems.
Or the admin service.
Yeah, or the admin service. It can be very simple thing, like for example, the preschool phenomenon, right? It's a recent phenomenon. It's, okay, what do you do? We sort of say, oh, the government should do something about it. Or as opposed to say, you know what? We can do something about it. We have the resources, we have the people with wonderful experiences overseas, people who have good ideas locally, and we can get together, and why don't we make a private sector effort out of it? Not so much to make money as to sort of say we can pool our resources and determine what's right. Because I remember, parenting is a very natural instinct. We don't, God has given us, and you don't need government to tell you. Right? Now, it's not to say that the government should be completely out of the picture. It can be coexisting. So I think that the issue here is, is the government thinking that they are the only one that can the source of solution, or we are ascribing that to the government. It's not the government thinking that. It's that the government, right? It's the way of local people saying that. Instead of us taking the ownership that say, let me do, maybe we'll get a bunch of affected parents together and say, maybe we can do something.
Well, let me just follow up on your questions. It's a great question. That there's a belief that when you have consistent levels of efficiency, when everything is going on very smoothly, efficient, it actually erodes resilience. Correct?
Yep.
So resilience and efficiency are actually on conflicting parts. And I think that's what we have been suffering from. We've had a very long track record of efficiency where everything is going so smoothly that we've not actually had enough opportunities to fall and learn how to break our fall. So much so that when the first time we break our fall is when osteoporosis has kicked in. And we know the consequences of that. It is a fact. In fact, it is a fact that more of our national servicemen today are suffering injury because they have not learned to break the fall. Because the only part of the body that is really exercised are the fingers. When we were growing up, at 4:30, we would go out and play, and we will fall into the longkang and learn how to pick ourselves up and move on. So it's an analogy, but the truth is, when things are going so smoothly, where's the motivation for you to actually fall or learn to break your fall? Maybe that's our problem.
Well, I think the problem is slowly but surely getting fixed. When our expectations are not going to get met from the continuing efficient operations in a increasingly complex and uncontrollable and uncertain environment that we all live in, what will happen? There will be a period of disappointment, followed by a period of soul searching and adjustment.
Yeah.
But many of us, that is why I think are doing the right thing. Some of us are chipping in and we're, say, okay, let me do something about this, don't have to be a big thing, and get organized and help ourselves. And others finding themselves overseas to work for a few years or pursue studies and travel. And all these things get us to see and experience life as they are in a much more resilient environment. One thing I would have to caution ourselves here is that we read about the new, we open up the Straits Times and say, oh, another basket case. The Italian economy is going to the crapper. things don't work in the United States and so on and so forth. You just look at those in society. If you go and, instead of just taking a bus tour,
Yep.
go there for a month, right? And bum around in the small towns or the canyons of New York City.
Yep.
And you discover how resilient people are. And you may learn something about yourself. And you may come back, not just, I'm not saying the old refrain would be, come back and be grateful.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying. Come back and do something to your own lives and to the lives of the people around you. And I think more and more young people, to their credit, are taking up that challenge to go overseas without the familial support.
And I think in NUS itself, right, quite a
Yeah.
few students are taking the gap year, right?
And taking the exchange year
Yeah.
abroad and so on. Those are wonderful things. We can't do enough of it.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. One more
Sip
last
Ing, there are
question.
people behind you, lah.
I know.
alamak.
One more last question, Professor.
Okay, last question.
These
It seems to
Malaysians,
me that the crisis will bring up the leadership.
Yes.
Just like you go to the case of SARS, where something happened, you see the leader coming up.
Right.
So the Chinese saying, 英雄造时势,不是时势造英雄. So what is your interpretation?
Sorry,
You
what does that
have to
mean?
wait until a crisis happens,
You're
then
telling
you
me
can
things.
discover all the leader. Otherwise, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Thank you. Well,
Thank
as
you.
it turns out, this is what I do systematically, which is that indeed, without challenges and opportunities, there are no leaders. Indeed. By the way, there's a corollary of this that's a lot harder to swallow, and which is that one cannot truly discover how good a leader you can be until you have a setback or failure. Because challenge is, the point of resilience. You don't know how resilient you are until you take a fall. And are we a society or a system that expects our heroes and winners to win every step of the way, straight A's, extra papers, A's, go to university, first class honors, and go, fast track through the wonderful organizations and emerge at the very top? Are these people genuinely well prepared for leadership? I mean, nothing against the degrees and all these things. That's not the issue. The issue is the preparation. How can we be a society where we actually encourage people to fail, right, often and much? And they can learn and have people with the 25% spare capacity, so to speak, to be there on hand to say, come, let's talk about it. What is it that you could have done differently? Well, let me talk to you about my failure, my setbacks. That's how we can all grow.
That's true. Yeah.
Please.
Hi, Professor Hsieh. My name is Arun, and I'm a graduate student here in NUS. What I want to ask is, I understand that for a good leader, he should have a positive vibe with him, and he should portray a good charisma to the people following him. So what can I do to have this kind of characteristics?
Well, one thing you could do is to sign up for my course. Or you start from but sorry, seriously. You mentioned the word charisma. I don't know what books you have read or movies you have seen. In my days, maybe not your days, Clint Eastwood is sort of the hero and the leader. And,
Paul Newman.
And that's not the model.
Steve McQueen.
That's not the model of leaders anymore. I tell you, there was, in Boston, right? I ran into this Chinese woman from the Philippines, and she did very well at school, and they went to Harvard, and after that joined McKinsey, and that's how she was introduced to me. So I said, "What are you doing now?" I said, "I quit Goldman Sachs and McKinsey, and now she was actually raising public money to renovate prisons and convince investors, not your very first investment, but if you have discretionary money, can you please invest in a social cause, right? At best, if the prison management met their KPIs, right, we would be able to pay a decent interest.
Yeah.
So you are doing good, social good, and get a reasonable return.
Yeah.
And I was very moved. And I was very moved. They'd say, here's a person that had good schooling, went to the best commercial companies in the world, and yet decided to take that at a very young age and decide to take the untrodden path.
Mm-hmm.
Should have stayed, and I've seen many, many young people make it in these organizations, but instead to chuck that to the wind and set sail in a very uncertain territory. She is, to say the least, uncharismatic, right? But she had such a presence. And the presence is that burning belief, that passion on believing that what she does will do that little bit of good in that part of the United States. So I think the followership point, I think, is absolutely right. But don't just think about it in a charisma, but I think about it as, therein lies the clue. The clue is, what are you passionate about? Right? And if you are, that's the very good place to start, because if you start by, you're able to answer that question and say, I am passionate about the needy people. Okay, great. You're passionate about, helping SME, grow overseas. Yeah, I mean, it is a commercial calling. I don't need all of us to be doing charity. That's not what I meant. Or I'm passionate about helping patients get well. Well, let's start there and ask the question, what else, right, that complete that statue of David in you? It's already there.
Yeah. And I guess a coefficient of passion is also a sense of purpose, isn't it?
Correct.
Being driven by something that is a purpose that you want to achieve, and maybe in many ways that's missing because someone else has decided the purpose for you. And unless you are the designer of that purpose, it's going to be very hard for you to be passionate.
By the way, I'm just judging by, if we start a conversation today, the young people that came to me, the first question they will say, what do I do? Do I go to college? Do I go to graduate school? Do I accept DBS job offer or go set up a, F&B little outlet and be a barista? Those kind of questions. I have, as I look back, young people who come back to me year after year, right? They may not come so often. The initial part of it, the bottom is three, four times a year. Then later on, 5 years out, they come once a year. Say, Uncle Sun-Yan, can I still come and buy you a cup of coffee? Sure. As I said, I never said no. Because I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, it would take about 7 to 10 years for the people from this part of the world to answer that question, purpose.
Yeah.
It's a very simple question, but we have to try a few things. If I graduate first class honors, join DBS, and get promoted, every other 2 years, and you ask me purpose, I sort of scratch my head and say, my purpose is to get the next promotion. And nothing wrong with that, huh? But, to get purpose, you kind of, where is that chisel that had to knock against that marble to remove the excess material? Say, you know what, that's not it. I bump my head against the wall and that's not it. Let me adjust 2 degrees here and try this thing.
Yeah.
You got to try a few things before you find your purpose.
On that note, Sun-Yan, I want to, there are quite a lot of questions that are coming online. There's one of the hottest questions. I want to put it up. Can we put it up? The one? Yeah. Is it coming up? Why did you choose consulting after an undergraduate degree in engineering? What made you switch careers and go for McKinsey? I guess it's related to this purpose thing.
Yeah.
Something must have made you do something that is so stupid.
Quite. Well, without going on, because I think that the data and the specifics is actually quite illuminating about the point I just made. All right? I studied mechanical engineering, so I came back here and said, would you be an admin service? I say, no, thank you. Can I be an engineer? So they gave me a real engineering job, Kallang Public Works Department, where cockroaches reign. All right, when the Indian man comes with the morning round of coffee, I count how many cockroach legs are floating around and fish them out with my ball pen before I drink them. Okay? That's engineering world. So how did I go from there to consulting? Well, it wasn't a conscious choice initially.
Mm-hmm.
What I discovered was that in the Army, in the National Service, things happen in the National Service. I found myself being an instructor at the Officer Cadet School.
OCS.
Mm. So, amongst other things, I ended up throwing grenade more often than other people. But anyway, I discovered that I'm interested in getting to know more about the young people that are in my charge. I say, wouldn't it be lovely if I can make a career out of helping, nurturing, bringing up people? Because these are people you don't just yell at and go through the syllabus. You see them grow against the challenges. And they in the Officer Cadet School are supposed to emerge as leaders. In West Point, you say, I asked those instructors, what are you? What is your product? They say, officers. And tell me, and we have a specific meaning for that. Number 1, warrior. Number 2, gentleman. Number 3, leader. That's our definition of an officer. Okay, happened to be the Army, so we had to be a warrior. We had to be able to shoot. Okay, that's fine. Gentleman and a leader. Yeah. So I discovered unknowingly that I like to help people. So when I was at Kallang, one of my jobs was there was a booming Changi Airport project, and I got to I volunteered for 2 jobs. One was building services in institutions, government institutions, and the other one was heavy plant equipment. And then I had my luck. $40 million worth of bulldozers. I see all these foreign suppliers coming in, bearing goods, which I all had to declare and give away. But I got really curious that, I had to teach these people how to market to me. Don't please come with gifts that I can't make any, don't score anything with me, because I have to declare, all right? 2, is that don't give the lowest bid, because I have to live with your machines to maintain afterwards. It's my job to maintain the public fleet. How come I'm teaching these people how to market? Maybe I can do a better job on the other side of the table. And then I'm beginning to start a career of going onto the business side. And it was at Harvard that I ran across McKinsey for the first time. When they asked me to come for interview, I say, please go away, don't bother me. How dare you call me up on the night before exams?
Like a good Singaporean student.
Right, I was a good Singaporean student. But I discovered when I was interning with Cummins Engine that they were actually they were actually assigning me to discover how to introduce production methods by team concept. They say, Asians are more Confucius, so how come they don't work in teams? Maybe you can find out and recommend. So, basically that's how I slowly, through a few happenings, began to discover the joy of actually helping people. And that joy is growing over the years. So, if you say, how come engineering students got into consulting with McKinsey and so on, you know what? We serve in McKinsey a lot of engineering organizations in the world, technology companies that require a good engineering degree to understand. And engineers are very systematic. We look at a problem that I say unfamiliar, uncertain problem, and give it some structure, right? Engineering is not just about machines, in my case, a mechanical engineer, but also in a way of structuring problem to be able to solve it. And some of my most memorable studies were very much close to engineering. Yeah.
So you've not really left engineering.
I kind of believe that I built on it.
Okay. We're running out of time. Let's take both questions together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Jimmy. I'm a NUS MBA alumnus. Professor, my question is, do you think a great leader is born or is trained to be? How do you see some great leaders, maybe they didn't really go through the business training, like Jack Ma, the chairman and founder of Alibaba Group? Thank you.
Okay.
That guy just might be
Are
lucky.
great
yeah.
leaders born or
Is it born or it can be trained to be?
okay?
Yeah.
Trained.
Okay,
Yeah.
next question.
Hi, I'm Joey. I guess my question is different from Jimmy, so I don't know how you want to answer at the same
Where are you
time.
from?
I'm alumni of NUS, MBA, and I was also working for the company which Prof, you are having the directorship on. I was reading your LinkedIn profile just now, and I find out you have holding so many important roles. And so I was just wondering, how would you manage your time, for giving meaningful contributions to each of, important roles you're holding. I just wonder whether you can share about your personal experience, what drives you working hard when you're at different career stage, when you were, just get a job, when you become senior, have a family, and when you are now, which you are somebody now. Thank you.
How do you strike the balance?
Strike the balance, and what drives you working, drives you, not go to sleep.
Thank
Okay,
you.
is that okay with the answer?
Yeah, please, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very quickly, I think if you believe that everyone is a leader, therefore everyone is born a leader. Now, I will not go into the biology of why, I convince myself, even from a biological point of view. The odds of a particular conception proves that every conception is an act of leadership from the point of view of the odds against the biological occurrence, right? But the important thing is everybody is born, first of all, a leader. But it is also developed, right? Which is you're born a leader, but you're like that marble, they're lying there growing mold. You will need the challenges, the crisis, the mentor, which is the cross, Michelangelo in that particular case, to actually bring out that beautiful leader that's in you. Otherwise, you are rough. We heard about diamond in the rough.
But in the first place, you need to believe that there's something there.
Yeah. So, it's not like, this is not about, looking for the Mozart amongst us, yeah? They say, you know what, let's forget about piano lessons or violin lessons. I'll never be able to be as musical as him. No, there's no question that some people are gifted, right? And born to be terrific leaders from the get-go. No knocks against them. Right? And even then, and I have the privilege of working with some of these, even then, they don't know how to lead in all situations with all people and all challenges.
Yeah.
They too have their moments of setback and self-doubt and crisis of confidence. Right? So the question is that there's no exemption from those two fundamental truths. Number one, everybody is born a leader. Number two, everybody can be developed, right, to make themselves the best leader they can be, right? And the second part of it is, in fact, if you're Mozart, if you're not challenged, you can be very cocky and go around, right, and do silly things too, yeah? So if it is properly harnessed, can you imagine the distance that person will go? So it's all relative. The second part, which is the development part, is, I would say, a lot more important than the natural part that is born with. Yeah. Okay, the second question.
First.
Right, which was about what? No, the first question.
The first question.
Yeah, the second question. Can you remind me what was it? Can you guys remind me very quickly?
Where's the?
Sure. I was wondering,
Yeah.
The first part is actually how would you manage your time, your energy, your
Yes,
resources for
yes.
taking so many roles?
Yeah.
Balance, the balance.
Now, I tell you big and small things, and then we don't have a lot of time here. First of all, there are a lot of very, very talented leaders in this town that are actually doing a hell of a lot more than I do. And so I'm not a paragon of capacity in terms of that. However, having said that, two things on both bookends. The first, if you have a sense of purpose, right? It is not work. You're on a mission. All right? So if people will say, why do you help young people? I say, you know what? I enjoy helping others.
Yeah.
I had a test done that actually confirmed that my number one passion is helping others. If I had known that earlier, I can understand now the question as to why. And McKinsey is a natural place. But even then, it did not satisfy. McKinsey helps organization, but I want to help people. So I was actually very joyful to have taken a little bit earlier retirement, cashed out, and then devote myself fully. And spending time pro bono with a lot of young people and so on and so forth. Why? I enjoy helping others. And when you do, and you're not kidding yourself and not making politically correct statements here, you find positive energy in what you do. And this is not a religious point. I can tell you this. Because when you grow older, you find that you don't have as much stamina and energy. But therefore, doing things that are pleasurable, meaningful, constructive in your own estimation makes it sustainable. Make it want to come here and do this kind of thing and want to go answer the next call for coffee time with a total stranger, the 22-year-old that you probably will not see again. Why do you do that? Selfish reason. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I get positive energy, even if I don't see that guy ever again. You know what? And because of that, I can say whatever I want to say to him or her, right? And it is honest to goodness, the truth as I see it. They can take it or leave it. You see? So that's one. The other end, and then we get done, is this. You have to find a set of work habits that allow you to accomplish a lot more than otherwise. And for me, the life of a consultant is very little is your control. And what I mean by that, a client says, okay, be in Taipei on Tuesday, 2 p.m. for a meeting. You had to drop everything and fly. Your life is like this.
Yeah.
You're zigzagging all the time, right? So one of the things that I found that I say, hey, as I was thinking about changing gears and doing what I do now with LinHart, right? Is that I'm focusing on the important things, on how to help people, youngsters and senior executives, and to become the best leader they can be. It's an important thing, but it seldom is that urgent.
Yeah.
You don't need me to be in Taipei Tuesday afternoon to
At
learn
2
how
p.m.
to be a better leader. Are you working on what I said to you 3 months ago? If not, I'm not coming.
Yeah.
All right? Therefore, you develop a set of work habits. In this case, rhythm. Rhythm is a very funny word, yeah? So those of you who learn ballroom dancing or dance, or whatever it is, you understand, or music, you're into rhythm. But how often do you think about life balance from a point of view of rhythm? It's important. I find that I do better in long-haul travel than short-haul travel. So guess what? I do not have any clients in Bangkok, but I have a client in Silicon Valley. Why? I rather enjoy the flight to get there, all right? And I find them arrive more fresh. There's no rhyme or reason, but you actually can develop if you're listening to your body. And discovering what that rhythm that works for you is the secret formula to achieve, all right? The balance between work and life and have the capacity to do more.
Brilliantly put. Almost zen.
Oh,
There's this last question
okay.
that I think it's such a hot question. Yeah. There are more young leaders emerging today. What is your advice to these young leaders to gain respect, especially when they are likely to lead people who are more experienced or senior than them? It'll be a good opportunity, I believe, for you to talk about influence, which you didn't get a chance to talk about. I
Right.
would appreciate if you could talk about that.
Right.
You talk a lot about that in your writings.
Yeah. Incidentally, I'm glad that you bring that up because I don't teach leadership. and I'm trying to educate people about influence. Nothing gets done because you tell somebody to do something. You actually influence people to do things. And in a society that is, that is getting more mature, whether it is, for example, influencing your sister, or in our case, our wives or grown children, it is all about influence. You don't tell them, right? Try telling them to do something. It is hopeless. So when that is not working, you should ask yourself the question, how good, how influential am I? And by the way, for those of you who are listening to home theaters and stereo, influence is like your subwoofer. It's omnidirectional. Okay? So imagine that Yo-Yo Ma were to walk into the room right now, right? And he says, hey, guys, let's get up and I play and then you all sing. That's a very simple tune. We will do that. He's influential. Never mind that you're not necessarily a cellist, a musician, or we're here having a musical lesson. Right? So influence crosses boundaries, right? Influence is both direct, not just in terms of what I say, how I say it, my ideas, my experience, how good they are, but also indirect, body language. Do you believe that I'm just giving you the BS or genuinely draw observations from my life? Right? What is the body language? What is the unsaid? Is it believable? Right? What is my network? Is another network is the quality and breadth and depth of the network is also a major influence. Now, all of us know people that are influential because they can call upon people that connects and good things happen, right? They may or may not themselves need to get involved. That's influence. And then finally is, things like stature. The guy is not even in the room. You hear his name. When he says, so-and-so would like you to, come to a function and help out on this community, you go because the good things that you have heard about the individual, the regard or respect that you hold of that individual. Now, I've given you an example of direct, indirect, and further remote. All these things, and there are many things in between, are different ways in which you can influence to produce a good outcome. The good defined not just in your own gain, but the gain of other people and so on, because otherwise it's manipulation. Manipulation, right?
Well, are you done? Sorry?
No.
Okay, please.
So I think the important thing is to realize that, when I was joined as the first ethnic Chinese in a blue-blooded firm, the typical chief executive is late 50s, white, and male. So why would he want to listen to young people that are typically consultants, and never mind a Chinaman, who by definition don't know about his business? All right? So what did I learn from all of that? I learned from all of that first of all, you have to be an interesting person. You just started off, so you have no stature to talk of. And I don't have a professor who can teach me about body language and how to say things in an eloquent way. So are you an interesting person? Are you an interesting person? 1982, in Oslo, there was this Norwegian company that had a high technology in turbine blades, metallurgy. The entire team, starting from the senior partners, were thrown out of his office because they think these are a bunch of oily business people, that he does not have anything that they can offer that he will listen to, because he is a mad scientist. And he's a very powerful shareholder because he invented the company. All right? So in desperation, my seniors of the team, I'm the low guy on the totem pole, say, maybe we can send you in there like a lamb and feed the wolves. You go in and see what we can do. Otherwise, we're officially done. So what is there to lose by sending me in? I learned something that day. The first question he asked me was, do you speak Chinese? I said, yes, I went to Catholic high school before Raffles Institution, so I still remember my Mandarin. And so he spoke to me in Mandarin. He's a white Norwegian guy, mad scientist. I was there, with my briefcase. In those days, you don't have iPads, so you're carrying all the bricks, armed to the gills with all the data analysis and so on, and whip out at the moment's notice. No such conversation ever took place. It's very interesting, right? You Chinese educated people are very good in mathematics. I say, ooh. Now, I would have understood if an English school guy, a boy in Singapore would have said to me back in the 60s, 70s, these days is on the level playing field. But how would he know, not that I'm good in math, but that reference to Chinese educated students being good is a dead giveaway of something very close to home.
Yeah.
So I say, I don't know. I think there are many people I know around me that are very good in math, but I'm afraid I probably let you down because I did not get a very good grade in my my mathematics, in my Chinese O levels. So then I asked him the next question and say, tell me something about yourself. How did you know about this? He say, I married a Singaporean wife. And you Chinese school students, he kept saying, are very good in mathematics. And we have a wonderful conversation about how did they meet and so on and so forth. It went on for 3 hours, and all my senior partners, senior engagement managers were sitting outside, all have their suitcases or the flight, at that time, the garment bags, all ready. And so I say, well, shit, this guy, you go on, we're going to miss a flight already. This is a lost cause. We might as well, send in the last bill and forget about this client. But I was in there for 3 hours just having a social chat. And to cut a long story short, the door opened, so my partners all stood up, and this guy, so I was like, come, and put his hand around me, and then said this to the senior partner. 2 things. So number 1, he is a very interesting guy. And 2, because of him, the rest of you get to stay. You see, he's a mad scientist. He made his money. We're supposed to help him how to sell turbines. Why does he care? Right? Sure, we believe that we can really add a lot of value. But to him, it's like this versus that.
Yeah.
There are more important things in life. But at the end of the day, it's not that I made a very interesting conversation. It's that, you see, when I'm talking to you, and he taught me, humbled me, every person I meet, I say, you know what? What's your life like? What's your family like? Where do your parents come from? Because I might just be lucky to find somebody that is 1 degree removed from me, that is also a Singaporean, some strange corner of this world. That because that 1 degree, if I did not ask that simple question about life, about living, right, would have missed that critical connection that in that case turned out to be make or break. Now, this is a happenstance. I got lucky, you might say, but it's repeated over and over again. And you may explain why. You say, how come you say all this politically correct thing, paying attention to people and so on? I do that because I was given that break. My team was given that break because of a very human, very simple curiosity. How did you know, when I told you that I was Chinese school educated, that you surmise that I must be damn good in mathematics? Right? It's interesting, right? And then where? This is Norway. How does that connect to this? How did you all meet? It's very interesting, right? Life is interesting. So, so I am, my partners always describe, Tsun-Yan is always fearless. If only he knew, if he ever look in the mirror, how fearful he should be. How come he's so fearless? I'm fearless in a sense because I find that if you dare to be human, you get a human response. And when that happens, it's no longer whether these are whether you're talking to Napoleon, or you're talking to the Pope, or you're talking to a pauper. They're all human. And with that, you can establish a rapport, whether it is a 10-minute conversation, whether it is a 3-hour conversation. You enjoy that, even if it is the last time you all meet together. And as I was bringing up this example, I have not thought about this example for at least 30 years.
Thank you. You see, I've always believed that the ultimate gem comes at the end, unrehearsed. And I think that's the powerful metaphor of this interview. There are so many things, Sun-Yan, that you may have planned to talk about, but I'm sure we'll all agree that the penny dropped when you talked about something you didn't plan for, because it came unfiltered, straight from the heart. And I think that's the most powerful lesson that I'm taking away today, you know. And I must say that I'm extremely humbled to have had the opportunity to converse, or as the Americans put it, conversate with someone as simple and brilliant as you are. And we are proud that you are part of our fraternity. Thank you. Thank you. And we're not going to let you leave without something. So, this is a picture of you and me. I'm the better one. This is us.
I've got more hair.
So, this is for you. This
Thank
is
you.
for you. And here is something that, this is where you write some lovely things about tonight and about me. And while Sun-Yan is writing this, I just want to let you know that we've got 2 more You Alives for this year. Next month, our guest is Indrani Raja, Senior Minister of State for Education and Law, and she'll be talking about her experience in the journey in coming up with the recommendations of the Aspire Committee. So I urge you to come if you're interested in education and education as a social leveler. And our final You Alive is in November, and our guest is Minister Yaacob Ibrahim. So if you want to talk about penguins and the banning of books on penguins and the like, please do come. Right? It's going to be an exciting way to wrap the year. Would you want to read what you have said?
May all your lives ahead be filled with plentiful heart, smart, guts, and luck.
That's the name of his book. Give him a big hand, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's have some light refreshments. Come, we'll keep this for you. Thank you very much. That was a clincher, man. Right at the end, it was a clincher.